Hello. My name is Natalie Delott, and I'm going to be doing a film commentary on the movie Rango, which is one of my favorite existential movies. And this scene that I'm going to be doing a commentary on is incredibly significant for Rango's arc as a character because I think it fully illustrates the despair that he's going through over the course of the movie. So, to give a little context for what's going on right now, I'll tell you a bit about Rango, who is the hero of the movie. So, Rango is a pet chameleon, who really wants to be a hero. That's all he wants. And when he was a pet, he lived in a terrarium where he was surrounded by all these inanimate objects. Like he had a headless Barbie, he had a wind-up toy goldfish, he had all these fake non-living things that he surrounded himself with, and he would act out all these scenes in which they viewed him as a hero, or he saved them, or they were all adoring him. And yeah, so he would put on plays for these fake things. And then he fell out of his terrarium. His car hit a bump. He rolled off out of the car into the desert, and he discovered pretty much the real world and real living things. Um, and he came across this town full of people who were in grave despair because they were experiencing a severe drought. There was no water in the town. They didn't know who was taking the water. The bank was dry. And they were like, we're going to die if we don't have any water. So Rango starts telling the townsfolk all these lies about what a hero he is. All these people he's killed. He's killed so many bandits out in the West. He can help them find the water. Like anyone who took the water should be afraid because he's going to save these people. And he says it with so much conviction that he gives them hope that he will lead them out of despair. He will solve their problem. So the townsfolk embark on all these quests with him. They go out to find the water, and all of a sudden, one of the big baddies that he claims to have killed comes to town and says, I don't know this man. This man is nobody. He didn't kill me, and he didn't kill anyone. And all the townsfolk's trust in him is kind of evaporated because of this, and because he's not who he said he was. Um, and so they're kind of asking him, like, who are you? And once they were asking him that, he just leaves. He just leaves the town because he's, I think, humiliated, and devastated about the fact that he was exposed as a fraud. So we see this beautiful scene of the desert at night and him walking through it. And I think that there's a shot coming up that's really important for Rango. And it's this, where he's kind of illuminated by the moon and he's by himself. And I think that while being a very obvious homage to actual Westerns, I think it's important because earlier in the movie we saw it pretty much the exact same shot, especially where it pans in closer and closer to the subject of the shot. Um, but he was surrounded by the townsfolk, and they were going out to try to find who stole the water, and it was the sun instead of the moon that he was illuminated by. So I think it's a really interesting contrast to do two celestial bodies highlighting him while he's among people and while he's in this role that he wants for himself and him when he's alone, even though he's taken on the outfit of the sheriff, even though he has the hat, he has the boots. Um, he is alone, and so things feel colder. He doesn't feel victorious. There's no like victorious music playing. It's somber, and he's just kind of by himself. So I think this scene is really important to show kind of why he's so upset, um, and what's going on internally, even if we're not hearing anything. But I also think it's really important to note that even though he's alone, he is still like creating these ripples in the sand. His footprints are still making a mark on the sand. Like, I think this is very significant as well to show that he is changing the desert landscape just by himself. He doesn't need a group of people to do it with. So now we see Rango approaching this road. And this road is pretty, actually, I'll go ahead and play this. This road is pretty significant because this is where he fell out of the car initially. Um, And he was battered around by yeah, this is the goldfish that comforted him while he was in his terrarium. So he's kind of returning back to where it all began. Um, he's sitting with this headless Barbie that treated him as a hero before he actually met living people. Um, and he's just kind of sitting by this road that he was told to cross. When he first fell out of the car and he was hit by all of these cars, he came across a traveler who told him crossing the road will lead him to the answers. The person who's crossed the road has reached the end, you know. And so he's back there. He's with these inanimate objects that don't bring him comfort anymore because he's just so stuck in this despair. And I think that this next line, while he's thinking to himself, is really important. So Rango asks himself who he is, which is a question that the townsfolk have been asking him leading up to this moment, and that he's kind of been worrying about himself, but I wouldn't necessarily say that he's been asking himself. So once he comes to that answer, that he is nobody, I think it's very reminiscent of the type of despair Dostoevsky described when one doesn't understand or one has no sense of self. One is fully like, I would say, relying on external factors to kind of tell them who they are, but deep down, Rango doesn't have an identity. He doesn't even have a name. He came up with the name Rango when he met the townsfolk because he wanted to seem impressive. He wanted to seem like this baddie. Um, and so he doesn't even have a name. He doesn't have anything. No friends, no family outside of the fact that he wants to be a hero. And I think he's just kind of sitting there grappling with that. Like that moment where he asks himself who he is and he says, I'm nobody. It felt very Dostoevskian to me to say that the type of despair he was experiencing was just a complete lack of identity, outside of this wish to be a hero. So now he's taking all of his sheriff's outfit and he's looking at the road that once beat him up and holding his, I would say, the heart of his new identity, his hat in his hands while he's attempting to cross the road, I think kind of represents him holding this dream of being a hero as well. And I also think it's really important that he's crossing this road with no difficulty. He's just kind of going underneath all the cars, whereas before he was really getting battered by them when he first fell out of the car, and into the real world. And now he's just having no difficulty passing underneath them, as he makes this quest to kind of find the answers. And I also think that this moment is incredibly significant in detailing Rango's despair, um, because the external factors of the road didn't really matter to him. Like he was crossing it, but he wasn't noticing the cars. He wasn't watching out for them. He wasn't being careful. He was just kind of trusting that he would cross it, which I would say Kierkegaard would enjoy. Um, but I think that what really hits home here for me is almost like a Sartrean uh problem where he is so lost in despair, he's not noticing these external factors because he's been confronted with this objective identity instead of this subjective wish for kind of like who he would love to be and who the townsfolk understood him to be before he was exposed for being a fraud, and that all the things that got them to appoint him to sheriff were actually lies. So I think that it's interesting to me that he crossed the road and he didn't even notice that he'd made it to the other side. He looked down, he was like, wait, where are the cars? And he looked down and he noticed that he's made it across the road fully. That to me kind of seemed symbolic of the like ignorance of an external situation because you're so deeply in despair of not being who you thought you were. I think it's important that he did make it to the other side, number one, because it shows his arc as a hero. It shows that he really has become a hero for these townspeople. And it shows that he can do the things that he wishes he could do. Like he can cross the road, he can embark on these great journeys. But just because he lied to them to get to here, to get to this point, is destroying him because he's realizing that previously, before he found an identity around helping these people get their water back, he didn't have one. And that for him is really crushing. So I think that this scene is just beautiful because it illustrates Rango's entire arc as a character. Um, from having no identity to having an identity created for him by kind of a lie, but also through his actions. So he lied about being a hero previously, but he became a hero in the role of sheriff. He actually did help these people. He did form relationships with them. And he did become a leader for them. So once he realizes that he has done it and that they are relying on him and that what matters is his bond with them and his relationship and what they're doing together, he is able to overcome this despair, overcome this moment of who am I and I'm nobody. I've always been nobody. Like once he realizes that he has crossed the road despite quote unquote being nobody, then he's able to go on and actually save the townsfolk from evil rattlesnake Jake, who is the baddie that came and exposed him for being a fraud. So yeah, I think that, and after this, he just kind of collapses, because he's made it all the way to the other side. But I think that this scene is really important in highlighting Rango's arc, Rango's despair, and Rango's way out of despair. So yeah, thank you for listening to my commentary. I hope you enjoyed it.